When Amarachi was a little girl, her life was far from easy. Her father abandoned the family when she was just 6 years old, leaving her mother heartbroken and alone. Yet her mother was a strong woman, one who believed that education was the golden key to a brighter life. She would always tell her daughter, "My child, life may deny us wealth, but if you hold on to knowledge, no one can take it from you." With those words in her heart, Amarachi grew up with fierce determination. She studied late into the night under the dim light of a kerosene lamp, even when her stomach rumbled from hunger. While other children laughed and played in the fields, Amarachi kept her eyes on her books. Her school uniform was faded and patched, but she wore it proudly. Her only friend was Ngozi, a lively girl with quick laughter and big dreams. The two shared everything: secrets, meals, and even their childish plans for the future. They promised to stand by each other, no matter what life brought. Years passed, and Amarachi's hard work began to bear fruit. She excelled in her studies, earned scholarships, and finally graduated with a master's degree in commerce, Bachelor of Commerce. Her success filled her mother's eyes with tears of joy. Determined to give back, Amarachi opened 2 agrovet shops in the bustling town center, selling fertilizers, animal feed, and seeds. Her honesty and dedication drew customers from every corner. Within a few years, she bought land and built a fine house for her mother, a home that stood as a symbol of victory over hardship. Then, love found her. She met Obinna, a humble, hard-working young man with dreams as big as hers. Their love blossomed quickly, and soon they were married in a grand celebration filled with color, music, and laughter. Amarachi looked stunning in her vibrant Ankara wrapper and blouse, her geel neatly tied, and coral beads resting gracefully on her neck. Obinna, dressed in his white Isiagu shirt and red cap, couldn't take his eyes off her. The entire village danced. Even the elders blessed their union. For years their marriage was blissful. They worked together, built dreams together, and supported one another. But as success grew, so did temptation, and it came through the person Amarachi trusted most, Ngozi. Out of kindness and nostalgia, Amarachi often invited her childhood friend to visit. She left Ngozi at home while she worked, shared her personal stories, her struggles, and her business secrets. Not knowing that jealousy had already taken root in Ngozi's heart, Ngozi began to whisper poisonous words, slowly turning Amarachi against her husband. She accused Obinna of cheating, sowed seeds of doubt, and watched the once happy marriage crumble. Amarachi trusted her friend's lies more than her husband's truth. Obinna tried to reason with her, begged her to see the manipulation, but Amarachi refused. The fights grew, love turned to bitterness, and finally, Amarachi left, convinced her husband was unfaithful. Weeks later, the news broke like thunder. Ngozi had married Obinna. The betrayal shattered Amarachi's spirit. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Her thriving business began to collapse as depression consumed her. She turned to alcohol to silence the pain. Her once bright eyes grew dull, her laughter disappeared. The same community that once admired her began to whisper, "Poor Amarachi, she had it all." Her mother cried every night, watching her only daughter drown in sorrow. One day she took Amarachi's hands and said softly, "My daughter, sorrow may last through the night, but joy will come in the morning. Rise again, for God has not forgotten you." Those words sparked something inside Amarachi. The next morning, she stood before her mirror, wiped her tears, and whispered, "This is not who I am." She poured out every bottle of alcohol, tied her scarf, and went back to her shops. At first, people doubted her comeback, but Amarachi was determined. She rebuilt her business, focused on work, and began mentoring young women. She taught them not only about business, but also about choosing friends wisely. "A true friend," she would say, "is one who claps when you win, not one who hides jealousy behind a smile." Her honesty and resilience attracted attention once again. Soon she was invited to women's empowerment seminars to speak about recovery, forgiveness, and success. One day, while speaking at a seminar in Enugu, Amarachi met Dr. Kenechukwu, a kind university lecturer who admired her strength. He listened to her story with deep respect and later told her, "You walked through fire, Amarachi, but you came out shining brighter than gold." They became close, first as friends, then as partners in faith and vision. Unlike her past, this love grew slowly and gently. Kenichukwu admired Amarachi not for her beauty or success, but for her resilience. When he proposed, he said, "I don't want to erase your past. I want to build your future with you." Their wedding was simple, yet elegant. Amarachi wore a white lace wrapper and blouse, her jewels shimmering under the sun and coral beads glowing on her neck. Her mother danced with joy, singing, "Greater than greater, than greater than greater, than greater 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 than greater and 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 greater than greater and 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 greater. And together, Amarachi and Kenichukwu started the Amarachi Agricultural Empowerment Center, a project to train women and youth in modern farming and entrepreneurship. It began small, but soon grew into one of the most respected centers in the region. Every morning, Amarachi would walk through the fields, her Ankara wrapper fluttering in the breeze, teaching widows and young girls how to grow crops, raise livestock, and manage their businesses. Kenichukwu taught the men and boys about irrigation, soil care, and marketing. Within a few years, they had trained over 500 people, giving hope to those who once had none. Women who once begged for food began selling vegetables in the market. Young men who had lost faith found purpose again. Amarachi became a living example of grace and rebirth. Her work attracted national recognition. She was invited to Abuja to speak at a conference on women's development. Wearing an elegant royal blue lace gown, she stood on stage and told her story. When life takes everything from you, don't let it take your faith. What you plant in pain, God will let you harvest in peace. Her words brought the crowd to tears. She received a national award for community transformation. But even in her success, Amarachi stayed humble, still living close to her mother and mentoring the women who needed her most. One quiet afternoon, as she was visiting a local market, Amarachi heard a familiar voice call her name. She turned, and there stood Ngozi, her former friend. Ngozi looked worn and tired. Her marriage had ended. Obinna had left her, unable to live with her deceit. Tears welled in her eyes as she said, "Amarachi, I destroyed what we had. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm sorry." For a moment, Amarachi's heart trembled with old pain. Then she smiled softly and replied, "I forgave you long ago. You were my test, not my ending." She embraced her friend, not in weakness, but in strength. Forgiveness became the final step in Amarachi's healing. That night, she sat beside her husband and whispered, "If I had not fallen, I would never have learned to rise." And from that day, Amarachi's story became a living lesson across Nigeria, a tale told in schools, churches, and women's meetings. Greater than her pain built her purpose. Her betrayal birthed her blessing. Her fall became the foundation of her greatness. And when she walked through her fields at sunset, surrounded by blooming crops and laughter of the women she had helped, Amarachi would always smile and say, "Greater than no storm lasts forever, only the strong and faithful do."